Hello, can you hear me? Hmm. Can't hear you for some reason. I can't hear you. Okay, so I'll go first. All right. Hello, call me Cam, right? Yeah. Well, basically, I believe that Trump is not a racist, and basically, people in his administration, like you got Ben Carson, you got Ben Carson's in charge of a HUD, and then you have Omarusa Meninggal, she's in charge of this public affairs, I think, or director of public affairs. But again, you have two African Americans serving in the White House in Trump's administration. And then basically, you've got his family. His daughter married to a Jewish man, and she herself converted to Judaism. And ironic, what's interesting is that people started to ask questions: Is he racist? Is he anti-Semite? And Charlie Rose did an interview with the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, and Netanyahu said, "Well, there's no way the guy's anti-Semitic. I mean, his grandchildren are Jewish, right?" And basically that right there ends it. And for me, he has a huge support, not just from now. I mean, there aren't too many, say, African American Republicans, but he has a good amount of African Americans support him. Immigrants such as myself are on his side, and therefore, if he was truly a racist, I would not even vote for him. Because if he was a racist, he would not even want me in this country because I'm an immigrant myself. And basically, again, if you go on Facebook, there's so many, let's say, Black Trump supporters, Hispanic supporters, Jewish supporters, even Middle Eastern supporters who believe Trump is not a racist, that he is doing the best he can. My own problem is that Trump, he's not very well at articulating his points. Other than that, I don't view him as a racist. And basically, I'm running out of time, and I think I'm going to pass the mic to you right now.
Hi there. Do you hear me? Excellent. Same thing. You're muted. Okay. My name is Douglas, by the way. That's easier. I understand completely that you believe that Trump is not a racist, and that is perfectly fine, and that's okay, and that is valid. But neither of us really know for sure, because everybody says, look at what's in his heart, and, well, we're not him, so we can't know. Only go by what we see. So things that he says, things that he does, who he has in his family, who he has as his cabinet, as you mentioned, which are valid points. But the question here is not, is Trump a racist, or do we believe that Trump is a racist, but is it unfair to call Trump racist? So in that kind of sense, the debate about whether or not he is or not personally a racist kind of is secondary to the fact as to whether it is unfair. So if it's unfair to call someone a racist like this, based on what would somebody make that determination on someone? It's the perception of them based on what they have said and what they have done. So fortunately / unfortunately for Donald Trump, because he has been such a public figure, unlike most of us who live in relative anonymity, there is a very long track record of decisions he has made, things that he has chosen to say, people he's chosen to associate with, manners in which he has handled certain affairs within his business, within his presidency, within his campaigning, which may or may not be indications that he is racist, but they are certainly racial. And for someone who is claiming to not be a racist, or for people that are defending the position that he is not a racist, is you still have to explain why it is that everything gets racial. For someone who's not a racist, he sure is quite racial. So that's about where my time's about to jog. I got another couple seconds. So let's not be taken away from whether or not he is a racist, or he is, and let's discuss whether or not it's unfair that people would have a perception of him as being racist, and whether then it would be unfair to call him on it. Because I think that is the subject of the debate that is being proposed, rather whether or not we believe personally that he is.
Okay, I'm back on. Right, so basically, I'd say the problem is that, like, I don't think Trump is doing anything that's, let's say, racial, right? I'd say a lot of the focus is coming from, well, let's say on the racial stuff. A lot of that focus is coming from, let's say, from the mainstream media. Basically, Trump does something wrong. The question immediately starts popping up: is he racist? You can watch CNN, you can watch MSNBC, and that's usually the question. And then, like, basically, like, I'd say the problem with a lot of people on the left. I mean, I'm not bashing everyone on the left, but basically, it's just this huge problem where basically, if you don't talk correctly, if you don't speak, or let's say if you're not able to speak in like in a more trendy way, then like basically they say, oh, you're probably a racist. You're probably from the old times. Now the problem is that Trump, he is from like the old days, like where they had different mannerisms, different understanding of life, right? And so like I'd say the problem is that he's not able to connect with let's say a lot of people when it comes to a lot of young people. And basically like the problem is that a lot of young people these days being told that, hey, if you don't act a certain way, it's probably something wrong with you. You're probably a racist. And again, like I'd say a lot of it comes from the media, basically at stretching this whole thing out. Like basically, is it fair to call him a racist? And is he this and is he that? And obviously, I don't think it's fair. I just think that he comes from a different era where again he's not able to, let's say, articulate his points in a more modern way, and like he might even use outdated terms. Or basically, before he became president, a lot of time that he spent was basically with his business echo chamber, right? And I'm not saying like he basically like is completely like isolated from, or he was completely isolated from the regular people in the United States. But I'd say his problem was that he's mostly, before he became president, mostly surrounded by his big business echo chamber, and like he would like, let's say, he's not really caught up with the times in that sense. But like I don't think he does anything that portrays, let's say, any racial biases or anything that like would be fair to say, is he a racist? Is it fair to call him that? And I don't think it's right to basically call him, or like the media says, is he racist? Is he? And again, I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's right, especially for a person who, again, is not good at articulating their points. But like that's basically, I guess, my time right now, and gonna give the mic to you.
Thank you. You raised actually. That's a lot of things that you say I can agree with. I think it's once you get to the point of taking the fork of the road, does this mean, or is this a sign that there's some racial or racist intent, or is this a sign that there is not? That's where we sort of diverge a bit. I understand your point, as well as like being from another era. I personally am gay, and I've had conversations with my back in the day where she would say something like, "Oh my God, I wish you were normal," and it wasn't normal as in I wish you were not gay, but she knew how being gay was going to be a harder life, and she didn't want her child to have a harder life. So therefore, she was wishing normalcy for me, in that me as a gay person would not have a harder life than someone who is not gay. So you can judge the talk of the era a bit by the context in which it's placed in. So, while yes, there's a valid argument, if you're looking at the context in which this, let's say, clumsy speech like this is being said, you're talking about a person who is a master of the media, who's lived a long time in the public eye, who knows how to get media attention, who was running to become the nominee of one of the two major political parties of the United States, the one that happens to have a history of Southern strategy and using dog whistle politics. Then he becomes the leader, the candidate for that party, and as one of the two candidates, he makes other statements while the cameras of the entire world are on him. And then he accedes to the role of president, where he is now probably the most talked about person in the world, with the largest access to media, with the largest amount of power, with the biggest pulpit. So therefore, basically, cable access, 24/7 access, and cameras on him to let us see him and hear him doing things that would dispel any notion that he is, if not racist, racial, and that doesn't happen. So when we talk about the MSM, yes, when you get the pundits and everybody else and the opinion leaders taking, okay, he said this, what does this mean? You can go
on. That's cool. Okay. All right, so it's my turn, right? All right, basically, like, let's say this. Like, again, I think it's all exaggeration. Again, we don't understand, like, let's say, where he comes from. And again, like, if we don't really have any evidence to suggest that he might be a racist or anything like that, like, again, it depends on what area you're from. But, like, again, had he done anything racist, he would not even, again, allow anybody in his administration to, like, he would not even, basically, if you're not white, you'd not be able to work in his administration. But we see that's not true. We see that there are African Americans that work in the Trump administration. So, like, again, the question is it fair to call him racist? And I'd say it's not. And again, you have a lot of African Americans who support him who will tell you that, no, I don't see it as racist. There's a great YouTube blogger, Candace Owens. She talks about how, speaking about, you talked about the Republican Southern strategy earlier. And basically, Candace Owens, she's a Black Republican, and she would actually give you great information on why Trump is not a racist. And so I would say, like, again, it's not fair to go by our modern standards and say, oh, well, he hasn't done enough of this, he hasn't done enough of that, and therefore, like, is he racist? And I think we're asking the wrong questions. I think the real question is, like, is he uniting America? And I think he is in a way uniting America. And is he racist? Like, it's not fair. I think it's, again, a big exaggeration from the left, from the media, like, where like, he'll say the wrong things, right? And they'll run off with it. Look at what he says. Therefore, he's probably a racist because of these words, these certain actions. But we need to be careful. Again, when you consider the fact that he's from a different era, he's not trendy like we are, for example, right? Like, we know what words are kind of politically correct, what words are not, right? He is more, before he became president, he was surrounded by this big business echo chamber. And again, when he started running for president, he started running based on the knowledge of America that he knew when he was growing up. But again, and it's still not fair to call him racist. I don't see how, like, people can make connections with his actions and say, oh, he does this, so he's probably racist. He says that, he's a racist. And again, people have not given direct evidence to support their claims if he is a racist or not.
Yeah, thank you. See, I'm going to this is where I'm going to respectfully disagree that people have not submitted evidence that he's not. There are lots of, like where I was going before, I forgot to check my time. It's something happens. So he will say something or he will do something. And then people will analyze that, and then you get to look and determine whether or not what that means for you. So when we're saying that, okay, if he's not racist, is he racial? Opening speech to launch this whole campaign of Mexico sending people. Now, the government of Mexico doesn't send anybody across the border. People come. So when Mexico sends us their people, they're not sending us their best. So framing, is it clumsy talk to suggest that Mexico itself is sending racists, the rapists and the drug dealers across the border? And then when you say clumsy talk, then of course and some of them, I guess, are good people. Yes, which sounds very much like old-timey talk, like, well, yes, well, that, but he's one of the good ones. So, which may explain why it is that he does have a Ben Carson and a Miss Chow in his cabinet, and that he's okay with Jared, being in his family, and that his daughter converted. Or it could be that Trump, because he's a human being, is complex and does have layers. And yes, there's his political side, and then there's his business side, and then there is his social appearance side, and then there is his private side that he has with his family, and what he really thinks and what he really believes when it's just him alone in his conscience. And all these, this does require you, yes, in 2017, to, even if you hold a certain belief, to some and have in your family people with whom you preferably not rather have or deal with if you had the choice. So that in itself is probably not enough. But you have to look at the number of incidents. And I'll get back to this on the next one if I have the chance. But there is a sheer number of incidents, and the Mexican one was just the kickoff. And when you look at the number of them, just in that span of time, and how certain, and keep those things in context, and not let the individual collective all together, there seems to be a body of work that some people could go on to at least wonder aloud, is he racist?
Okay, I'm on. Right, yeah, I heard a lot about the Mexican one, and usually that's a very popular one that's brought up usually whenever people ask, is it fair to call him racist, right? And it's just really interesting for me because I'm an immigrant, a legal immigrant, right? Basically, when he's talking about immigrants from the south of the border, right, he's implying, illegal immigrants. And I mean, basically, whether you like the statistics or not, but it's really dangerous. Like a lot of it, there's a lot of crime going on south of the border, and a lot of it by illegal immigrants, right? And that's not saying all illegal immigrants are bad people or criminals, right? But basically, a lot of the crime is done by the illegals that come south of the border. Like there's a lot of stories of women being raped, especially illegal women being raped and used by the illegal men. And then you got some murders going on south of the border. We had a few stories before Trump even ran for president, where we had incidents where you had illegals murder an American citizen, right? And basically, so when people try to argue that Trump is saying all Mexicans are, let's say, criminals and rapists and murderers, right? Well, that is not true. He's basically simply implying illegal immigrants who are crossing from south of the border. And again, there are multiple immigrants from different countries that cross the border. Like you got some guys coming from South American countries into Mexico, and then from Mexico further into the United States. And so basically, again, I'd say it's also not fair when, again, illegal immigrants could apply to anybody. It could apply to a German or French person too. If they violate their visa, they're an illegal immigrant, right? And his implications is basically that illegal immigrants are the problem, right? And that's not fair to say. Again, that's not racist. I think that's fair to say that he's racist based on that. But people like to say twist and turn the meaning or his, basically what he meant to say, they'll try to twist it, they'll try to twist the facts and kind of say, oh, there you go, we have the evidence right there. He's a racist based on these words, based on this rhetoric. But then, if we start researching what he says, then the question is it really true, or is it just an exaggeration, which is very typical of the mass media and the social media to start saying, hey, this person said the wrong thing, let's start gossiping immediately. And then, you don't have, these days, we don't have too many fact checkers. We just have people who read a title of an article and basically form their opinions based on the title. They themselves will not read the article. Yeah, so again, I don't think there is any evidence to suggest that Trump has done anything racist.
And I'd like to thank you for that intervention, because on that intervention, you focus specifically on one, which is the thing that we always do. We focus on each incident individually, and we can explain each individual one away. But before Mexico, there was the birther movement. The first black president could not possibly be one of us. He had to be born somewhere else. Then there was the wanting to see his degree, like this. The first black president didn't really do well in school before, but Harvard, he must have gotten there through some affirmative action, like this. Or there must have been some special provision, also related to black. Then there was the Mexico statement. Then there was Judge QallOut, who couldn't make an honest decision based on a financial case because he was Mexican and had affiliations with some Mexican groups that gave away scholarships. Then there was the Central Park Five before that, even though DNA evidence proved that they had nothing to do with it, he still kept going after them. Then there's the pardon of Joe Arpaio, who is, regardless of whether you think he's upholding the law or not, in one way, so, a high-level court determined that he violated the law in other ways. And before he even served a day for violating laws on affecting states, regardless of what we think of illegal aliens, because, we should at least treat them decently. As humans, we all have a certain value just by being humans, and that was violated. And he got a pardon. Yes. Then we have the Muslim ban. Then we had the claim of Muslims, dozens of Muslims dancing. Then we have the whole brouhaha with Take a Knee, where it's Kaepernick gets called out, Curry gets called out, Jamel Hill got called out before, like this, but Elway and Earnhardt Jr. do not. And he didn't have anything much to say, too much to say about the owners afterwards. Then we have the people that were here from Haiti to wonder to the last minute whether or not their state is going to be extended into the constitutional rights in Canada, believe it or not. And same thing with DACA, not letting them know at the last minutes. And there's a lot of things when you start looking at all of them, and the guy hasn't even been in office for 2 full years. There's a lot of people that are of these racial groups who could look at all of this and say, yes, we are probably under attack. Yes, he probably is racist.
Okay. Yeah, and I see your point. Basically, again, it's a big argument that's used by a lot of people who are anti-Trump or trying to prove that he's racist or racial, right? And let's say, for example, the Sheriff Joe Arpaio thing. Well, let's not forget that basically a lot of people, let's say on the conservative side, right, on the right-wing side, they did not view Sheriff Joe Arpaio as a racist or doing anything racial. They thought he's just upholding the law. And so basically, Joe Arpaio has a huge support here, and I live here in Arizona. And so basically, Arpaio had a lot of support from Arizonans. And so Trump basically said, well, you know what, I'm going to visit Arizona, and I'm going to make the people of Arizona happy. I'm going to pardon Sheriff Joe. And again, that right there cannot be used as, again, you cannot call Trump out and say he's racist because he pardoned Sheriff Joe, because many people themselves didn't know if Sheriff Joe was a racist or not. Sheriff Joe was just upholding the law. And then you've got the situation with DACA, right? Basically, again, again, it's a lot of people who got here illegally, right? And again, a lot of them, no fault of their own. You know, usually it's just their parents who brought them over here because they're little kids, right? Then they grew up here in the United States. But again, the thing with DACA, right now it seems like it's slowing down, but in the end, it doesn't mean that's racial or it's, anything racist about it. And then you got the Muslim ban. Now, the Muslim ban, let's say Islam is not a race, Islam is a religion, right? And basically, and it was temporary. It was just, so let's do a temporary ban on those certain countries. And again, I don't think, personally, I just don't think the right countries were banned, because I'm thinking some of the countries where, they don't even produce any terrorists, yet they're banned. I'm thinking, okay, why did that country get banned, right? But again, I don't think it was racial. Now, let's not forget that I believe Trump mentioned something about accepting refugees who are Christians, right, who are not Muslims. Again, Christianity and Islam are not racist; they are different religions, right? And again, many refugees from the Middle East, they are not just Muslims; many of them are also atheists and Christians too. And again, so let's say if Trump said, "I will only accept atheist refugees from the Middle East," is that racist? Is that racial of him? No, I mean, basically he just has a certain bias over a certain religion. But again, the situation with DACA, Sheriff Joe, and the Muslim ban, I'd say actually no big deal, or nothing racial about it, since again Islam is a religion, and DACA, again, it has to do with illegal immigrants who are here. And oops, I'm running out of time.
Hey there, I'd like to rebut two of those points. Yes, Islam is a religion, not a race, but Islam also conveniently happens to be a religion which is overwhelmingly practiced by people of other races. So that's what people on the left would call intersectionality. Just so happens that they go together often, even though not exclusively. With Sheriff Arpaio, the problem isn't that he was upholding the law. The problem is, when you're upholding the law, there are certain laws that you have to obey. You are not allowed to break the law in the process of upholding the law, which is what a superior court judge has determined he did. So the fact whether or not people support Arpaio or not, or how popular it is, like this is irrelevant. You can't break the law in the process of enforcing the law. And that's what it was judged that he had done. So whether you agree with the fact that he wants to uphold the law, it's the way in which he did it that was wrong. And it's the way that we should all object to, because if it was your family that was crossing the border and they were to be treated that way, would you like that? No. So let's not do it to other people. There are more humane ways to do it, and he clearly had the option of choosing them and didn't. The thing with Trump is that because he has such access to media and to platform, there seems to be a pattern of behavior where he never seems to miss an opportunity to show he's not racist. No one made him say Mexicans are rapists. The mainstream media just filmed and do it, and opined on it afterwards. Nobody made him go on Twitter and slag Curiel because of his race. That came from him. Nobody in today's racial war, nobody made him decide to use the word nasty in a tweet talking about the mayor of San Juan, who happens to be female and happens to be Puerto Rican. Nobody told him today to frame things as in they want things done for them, when they are us in terms of American citizens. There's no us and them. There's a natural disaster. What kind of person's response to people are dying are, you have a lack of leadership, people want something done for them? He had a choice of saying something else. That's the choice he made. That's why people think, and I think that it is plausible, whether he is or not, that Donald Trump is racist. I thank you for a very cordial debate.
I guess we got 3 seconds left. Oops.
Oops.